This is VSiN, the sports betting network. This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
We are kicking off Week 7 in the NFL tonight. Week 8 of the college football season already underway. And if you went to sleep early last night, you missed an offensive explosion in Seattle as Toronto's Bats finally woke up in the ALCS. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you for the next 2 hours.
You mean Professor Von Tobel.
Professor, yeah, you have a little bit of a school teacher vibe
Professorial.
today, but it's good.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something about pursuing the additional degree.
That's
I
right.
don't know.
No time for banter, though, but I just like my title corrected, please.
Okay, I'll work on that. No more senior NBA betting analyst, just strictly professor.
I think that's been dead for a while, but yeah.
We're with you for the next 2 hours live in downtown Las Vegas, home of the world's largest sportsbook, Circa Resort and Casino. But we do have a lot to get to, including Thursday Night Football and more. So let's set the table with what's to come with the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is The Rundown.
All right, we will get into our contest corner a little bit later on. Going to talk some survivor strategy for this week, who are 5 ATS contest selections will be in the National Football League as well, and JVT 7 in college football too, you got to determine.
Yes, very much looking forward to, well, not the college football thing so much. It has not really gone well, but hey, you know what? Staying afloat. There's still plenty of time left in the NFL season. There's the additional week, obviously, that's been established. I don't know if you know this in the last few years. So let's get going. I am very excited to see what this is going to be. And we're still alive in our faux Circa Survivor as well. We went to Green Bay last week.
Yep.
So for those who don't remember, we got eliminated in Circa Survivor in the bloodbath that was 2 weeks ago now. But we are now establishing the exercise that we will continue on to see if we would have won the rest of the way.
Because you just want to get hurt again. Can't wait for that.
Amazing how easy it is to make decisions when there's nothing on the line.
That said, the college football contest is interesting because we've talked back and forth, and the beauty of betting is that there are so many different angles and different ways you can approach games. We've done well overall this football season with NFL and college football, but the sides for the contest, it just shows, like, contest betting is such a different thing. Yeah, we've done terrible. Hopefully push it forward today. And we're also going to talk plenty of October baseball, where a home team may never win, apparently. And I say that in jest, but that's how it's going in postseason baseball so far. Mariners went up 2-0 in the ALCS in Toronto. Blue Jays bounced back in a big way yesterday, 13-4 in Seattle, 5 home runs, 4 doubles. Hope you had the over. You did have the F5 over 3.5, though never a sweat.
Yeah, didn't even have to worry about that, so that was pretty good. But we had talked about this. Adam Burke had mentioned it in his article over at vsin.com. Pretty much at everything except for the Shane Bieber. He had a Shane Bieber hits allowed prop that didn't get there. But if you looked at what Toronto had going against them in terms of luck, they had gotten a little unlucky in the first couple of games, specifically I think it was game 2 on balls in play. Figured that they were going to be aggressive, and sure enough, that was the case. So we'll see if offense continues in the series back in Seattle.
Toronto getting bet again today.
Yep.
Seattle opened minus 140-ish on the money line. Now seeing as low as minus 110 in the market. We also got Dodgers Brewers today, so we'll get to all of that. We'll talk it over with the head of trading at Boomer Sportsbook as well, Nick Bogdanovich, very familiar name and face here on the network. We'll also have Jeff Erickson on the program to talk through some NFL props for the weekend, but also tonight in Thursday Night Football, where we will preview this game at length. We've got plenty of icy hot bowl bets as the Steelers and Bengals, Rodgers and Flacco, go head-to-head. The over-under number of times the broadcast will bring up those guys' ages today could rival the number of mentions we have of Pod to the Futures on this very program.
Maybe, but because it's Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit on the. You know, he has a dog that he takes with him everywhere?
I did hear that.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't really understand and realize that was the thing. Maybe Al's just going to be so angry and jilted at the fact that he is also an old man that he actually just won't mention it.
I've actually started to enjoy the disinterest from Al Michaels. Like, it's becoming its own bit.
I mean, it is. It's part of me is I try not to get upset about it, right? Because I don't really watch with commentary a ton. I'll have it on mute doing whatever. But it is kind of like, bro, you're getting paid a lot of money. You could pretend to care for 2 minutes.
In terms of what we're looking at numbers-wise for tonight, the Steelers on the look-ahead line were a 4.5 point favorite, depending on the book. Reopened 6 at DraftKings and those other major sports books. 5.5 has kind of been the prevailing number here in favor of the Steelers. The total has been bet up from 42.5 to 44.5. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday, JVT. It does seem like the Steelers have turned a corner a bit. Defense coming off of its best day of the season. And Aaron Rodgers, back-to-back games now with a 115 plus rate, 7.8 yards per attempt or more. The numbers are getting better.
Yes. Okay, so let me ask you this, because, I've gotten a lot of, Aaron Rodgers fans in my mentions. Like, oh, you just hate it. Let me put some context behind what we're talking about him. I'm going to ask you a question. They have played up to this point, which would be 5. Don't look it up.
I'm going to look at their schedule.
You don't need to know the opponent. I would just ask you, how many games have they outgained their opponent in? Just from yardage.
Probably not many.
1. They have outgained their opponent.
That surprises me that it's 1.
Yes, they have only outgained one of their opponents. That includes, of course, the Minnesota game. It was just this last week that the Pittsburgh Steelers achieved the feat of outgaining their opponent from a yardage standpoint. In 3 of the 5 games they've played so far, they have been outgained by over a yard per play in 3 of the 5. In the last 2, they finally turned it around on a yard per play basis, outgained Minnesota by just under a yard. And then this last week, Cleveland doubled them up, outgained it by 2.5 yards per play. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, those are season-long numbers. And what I was saying to open up this game was that the last 2 weeks, they have been much improved.
No, I think you're right. So I think there's an argument to be made. My whole point is I'm just explaining why I've been feeling the way I have about this team. Because I'll get to the point, which is ultimately they have barely outgained their opponents in terms of yards. They are just barely. It's essentially like 0.2 yards per play for the season. They've been outgained on a per-play basis. And yet they're +7 in the turnover margin. They're +12, despite the fact that they're a 4-1 team in point differential. And 14 of those points came last week when they beat the Browns 23-9 or whatever it was at that point. So my whole point here being is that if you look at a lot, there's a lot to point to that would support my case that this team is not as good as their record would indicate. The question just now comes down to, are the Cincinnati Bengals the team you want to use to test that theory? I tried that last week with Cleveland. The results, if you remember, did not go well. The Gabriel and the Browns were never really in it. And so while I think I'm going to hold steadfast to my case that this is not a team that is, I think, amongst the contenders in the National Football League, I'll take my shot when they face those teams, as opposed to trying to catch the falling knife here against a Bengals squad that we can go through some of the defensive numbers have been just abhorrent all the way up to this point of the season.
Well, and let's do it, because this is a Browns team that has been easy to score on. Only Dallas and Baltimore have given up more points per game than them at 30.5 points per game allowed. They're 29th in yards per play allowed, 29th in third down, 30th in red zone. Their secondary is giving up the second most yards per game. As if you go through everything, they are in that bottom 5, it feels like.
Yeah, the advanced metrics paint the same. Everything no higher than 20. Look at the expected points added, defensive metrics, 30th in success rate, all of those sort of things. So that just goes back to, again, like, I don't know if this Steelers team is particularly good. You look at their offensive numbers outside of what I just mentioned to you. Their best metric, if you look at advanced metrics for the Steelers, expected points added per pass, they're 12th in the National Football League. But overall per play, they're 15th so far. Success rate, they're 21st. Their rushing game has not been efficient. They're 22nd. So your floor is probably raised by playing this Bengals team, specifically a Bengals team that has a lot of problems containing explosive plays through the air. So maybe you get a little bit better there. Steelers have not been able to generate those at a very high rate. They're around 16th in the NFL. So maybe you're just a little bit better tonight because you're playing this defense, which has a penchant for allowing other teams to look a lot better. And so this is ultimately leading to, like, I get why you're at 5.5. Like, this makes sense. It probably is where it should be at this point right now.
And a defense, we say all of that, we give you all the numbers, that is also likely going to be without their best player on that side of the ball today as well. As we hit the injury report for this game, we already knew that tight end Mike Gesicki was going to be out, but Trey Hendrickson officially listed as questionable on the injury report, pushing to play. But according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, called him a long shot, unlikely that he does. Tanner Hudson also out in the tight end room, as with wide receiver Charlie Jones and their guard Lucas Patrick, but a lot of the depth injuries versus some of their key players. On the Pittsburgh side, no Calvin Austin, Deshaun Elliott in the DB room, questionable, as is linebacker Malik Harrison and safety Miles Killebrew. Thanks to Spot Odds, by the way, for that injury update today, from professional sports bettors like Billy Walters to world-class bookmakers like the ones here at Circus Sports. Everyone who bets big at the book uses Sport Odds. Use the tools the pros use, spotodds.com. Again, spotodds.com. Use our code VSIN right now. You get a special discount on that as well, worth noting. But I think that's just another layer to what we're talking about with the Bengals' defensive issues.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to be good. So the question just becomes, can Joe Flacco and this offense actually do something? and provide some sort of pushback and maybe keep inside of the number, get this to be a high-scoring game. I would assume that that's not the case. The other part about this, to your mentioning of Hendrickson not being available, to the Steelers' offense credit, Rodgers has not really been pressured too much. He's only been pressured on 28% of his dropbacks. So this is going to be one where if you're not without your best defender and you're already a bad defense, how are you going to pressure him, and how in the world are you going to contain anything in terms of being an offense that tends to give up big plays, or excuse me, a defense that gives up big plays?
That was another thing I was looking, just going back to the game against the Browns last week for the Steelers. No sacks taken, 3 QB hits, but the Steelers' offensive line was really good in pass protection. And we heard the sound from Aaron Rodgers on the show yesterday that he feels more fluid. His body feels better. He's more comfortable in the offense than he has. And so if he can continue to take those steps forward against a good defense, I think the Steelers should be able to score some points. But weird things have happened on Thursday nights, as noted by what we saw just a week ago from the New York Giants.
Yeah. So I'm going to be curious. I mean, totals at 44.5. I guess if we're assuming that everything we know about this Bengals defense is true and that Hendrickson's not going to be available, instead of laying 5.5, because I think the number's probably right where it should be. I think you can make the case it's a little bit higher. Do you go with like a team total over? I think maybe is maybe the argument you make. Take the spread out of it and assume that the Steelers are going to have some sort of offensive success against one of the worst defenses in the National Football League.
You made a good point. It's like, can Joe Flacco then do anything offensively against the Steelers defense, who Steelers gave up 31 and 32 points the first 2 weeks of the season. Since then, over this 3-game win streak, haven't allowed anybody more than 21, held the Browns to 9 last week. Their secondary is 10th in rating against at 87.9, held Dylan Gabriel last week to just 4.3 yards per pass attempt. 52 attempts, which is crazy to think. He had plenty of volume.
Not good volume.
But the Steelers defense has played significantly better the last couple weeks as well. It's kind of getting more to the form we thought they were going to be.
Or they played the Vikings and the Browns.
That's true as well. We're going to take our first time out of the day here, but we're just getting started on Money Moves. The total in last night's ALCS Game 3 was 7. The Blue Jays scored 5 on long balls alone. We'll discuss whether or not the offensive explosion can continue, and can the Brew Crew follow suit and steal a Game 3 win on the road themselves. We'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The Mariners took an early lead on the Blue Jays yesterday thanks to a first-inning Julio Rodriguez 2-run homer, sent the Seattle crowd in a frenzy. 12 unanswered Blue Jays runs later, the final result was very different. Toronto makes the series 2-1, winning Game 3 on the road yesterday, 13-4. I mentioned it in segment 1. 5 home runs, 4 doubles for this offense that was really struggling to break through the first couple games. Was what we saw yesterday what we should expect to continue to see?
I mean, to that degree, probably not, I would say. But I do think that this team for the Blue Jays is better than what we saw offensively over the course of those first 2 games. I think it's fair to say. Maybe I was being a little hopeful that I was saying they were just beating up on a bad Yankees team in the first 2 games, hoping that this would be the case. So, I don't think they're going to go out there and bludgeon them the next few games for Toronto. I'm going to be more curious, as we move deeper into the season. So you get Castillo today, which is going to be very exciting. Castillo, if you haven't seen the recent form, his recent form has been incredible. And then you get Scherzer, who has not been pitching particularly well. And then as we talked about, the big news, I thought before the ALCS started, I texted Mike Palm about it because we've brought it up a couple of times, is that Brian Wu is set to start Game 5. And that was if they had needed him, and it sounds like they're going to need him, obviously, because they lost yesterday. So that's a pretty tough 1-2 punch, assuming that Wu's going to be healthy and ready to go, that you have to deal with, while simultaneously overcoming, if we're getting the baseline Max Scherzer production that we've seen in recent form. That's going to be a tough kind of thing to overcome over the next couple of games. So I still think you feel pretty confident if you're somebody like me in Seattle, or a friend, Kendall Valenzuela, if you're a fan of the Seattle Mariners. But this offense clearly has more to provide if you're Toronto, and it's going to be a little bit more of a fight than it looked like the first 2 games out there.
Yeah, and I think because of what we saw yesterday, too, we're seeing an influx of early money that is on the road dog again in this spot. They were as high as available as around plus 118, whereas Seattle opened minus 141-ish home favorites. That juice is now down to around -120, -119, the lowest number I see. And even money prices, you can get as high as +109, but even money kind of the prevailing number for Toronto now.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I disagree. So we'll see. I mean, again, I have this, like the Mariners, so my goal is just rooting for them every game. But if I didn't have anything, to me, it would be the Seattle here. Like you mentioned the move. If we're going to start to get to like -115, given the starting pitching matchup alone, I would say that I don't think Toronto has this edge. And we discussed this going into the series where the market definitely, it seemed, had put its flag in the camp of, oh, no, Toronto's the best team. Toronto is the better team. Wasn't necessarily sure if that was the case. Scherzer, let's take a look at both of them. Scherzer, of course, has not pitched since September 24th. That was against Boston. So long layoff, you can argue one of the same two things. Is it, hey, old guy, long rest, that's good for him? Or is it he's not really in good form, he hasn't pitched like this, and now all of a sudden you got to come in a high-caliber game on the road against a team that, of course, is a World Series contender. You look at some of the numbers for him. September, 10.20 ERA, 5.40 fielding independent, 2.5 nearly home runs per 9 innings, a walk rate of just over 9%, and the hard contact numbers for Scherzer in the month of September were awful. 14.3% barrel rate, 53% hard hit rate. For the season on the road, Stormy, he's got an ERA that nearly touches 6 and a FIP that is nearly 5. Every metric you would point to tells you that the Blue Jays are going to need some run support tonight if they're going to get this done against Scherzer. So if you do like that, if you like the Blue Jays tonight, I would probably suggest pairing it with a team total over. I don't think that you're going to be able to win this without getting to Castillo. But on the flip side, if you look at Castillo and what his recent appearances have, last 6 appearances, 5 starts, one of them in relief in that marathon game against the Tigers, 2 or 3 earned runs over 31 and a third innings. The dude's been awesome. Like I look at this and the way he pitches at home, 2.60 ERA, a fielding independent at about 3.7. Against kind of a righty-heavy lineup, I would think that he's going to fare relatively well, or at least in that matchup on a pitcher-to-pitcher basis, or he's going to be hitter-to-hitter basis. I don't know. I can kind of understand the market's excitement for Toronto, but I feel like this is getting kind of cheap on Seattle.
Okay. Again, -122, that price there for Seattle in game 4 tonight at home. Total sitting 7.5. Let's shift gears to what we're going to see in the NLCS. The Dodgers lead that set over Milwaukee 2-0 as we shift now to Dodger Stadium. And starting pitching has been the theme for LA through 2 games. Game 1, we saw Blake Snell go 8 innings, give up 1 hit, no walks, 10 strikeouts. Game 2, Yoshi Yamamoto tossed the Dodgers' first postseason complete game in more than 2 decades. Starting pitchers this postseason for LA: 6-1, 1.54 ERA, a WHIP of .70, 10.8 Ks per 9. They have been awesome. Now, can Tyler Glasnow keep it going for them today? Dodgers around a -174 home favorite in this spot.
I mean, recent form would say probably. You look at his last 6 appearances as well, just 6 earned runs for Tyler Glasnow over that stretch. 4 of them came in 1 start, and that was against the San Francisco Giants. So he has pitched really well in a vast majority of his last few appearances. You would assume that maybe that continues over. Like you said, though, the question becomes, are you going to give me like 6 again? Last time we saw you, it was 6 against Philly, and you can kind of push off, get into that bullpen a little bit more. And that has been a godsend for the Dodgers. And we have to, I think, point the finger, too, at this Brewers lineup. I mean, at some point, you've got to be able to get to some of these dudes, and you've done really nothing up to this point of this series. And on the flip side, you and I were trying to discover and look like, okay, what are they going to do? For the longest time, the Brewers didn't have anybody listed. Then it's Aaron Ashby, and then there's a thought that it was supposed to be Quintana. But now you can go with Ashby for maybe one and a third, and then throw Mizorowski out there for a glut of the innings, if that's going to be the case.
It's a gotta-have-it game, right?
Yeah.
So do what you have to do.
Yeah, I would assume everybody's this is, like you said, it's not the end of the series. It kind of is. If you're down 3-0 on the road, that's going to be a tough thing to come back from. So you would assume all hands on deck from a pitching standpoint. So I'd be curious to see if, Ashby, how long that's going to be. He has pitched a lot. I think he's got 8 appearances, or this will be his 8th appearance in the postseason so far. I think you can set yourself up relatively well to start the game. The question is who just comes in behind him and what is he going to get? But overall metrics, we'll just point this out. It's going to be a short sample size, but still 6 1/3 innings pitched so far in this postseason, and a 6.14 FIP over that small sample size. Anything can happen there. The command's been a little shaky for him, but if that pops up in the short amount of time he's going to be out there, the Brewers can't find themselves in a pretty big hole.
And by the way, I know you mentioned earlier the article from yesterday, but our guy Adam Burke does have another article previewing both of these games today up at vsin.com. Greg Peterson's got some of his plays. Steve Makinen has different trends and predictive metrics that he's looking at. So lots of different stuff to help get you set for these 2 games as we continue to discuss the NLCS portion of it. But
do you have a VSiN login?
I do.
I
Yeah.
got a paywall.
You want me to share that too?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll hit you with that in the break if you don't mind. The layer of this though that you mentioned is, can Milwaukee get to Glasnow in order to see the bullpen, I think is a very important part of this tonight, because as we mentioned how good the starting numbers are. The bullpen for the Dodgers in the regular season at a 4.29 ERA, it's 5.91 here in the playoffs. And so far, all we've seen Milwaukee do is score 2 runs on 5 hits in 2 games. So can you get to Glasnow and try to give yourself a little opportunity, like get some guys on base, get some guys in scoring position, because they haven't been able to do that at all.
Yeah, I mean, so did we talk? Was that the Brewers game, the second one? They didn't have a single runner in scoring position in that game. That can't happen if you're going to be in this spot. And the problem too is you don't really have a ton of guys that have seen Glasnow a lot. And the guys that you have not had a lot of success. So, for example, Christian Yelich has 14 plate appearances against him. He has 1 hit in that span. William Contreras has 10 plate appearances against Glasnow. He has no hits against him. If you're looking at just average, the guy that has had the most success has been a guy like, there's a couple of guys on the roster. Danny Jensen, who's hitting 333 over 9 plate appearances. There's not a lot of dudes that have success in the few plate appearances they have against them. And that's, I think, going to be a problem for them as well.
Have you given any more thought over the last 24 hours to any of these, whether it be the NLCS, ALCS, awards markets, World Series stuff, like anything looking ahead that's caught your eye?
Not really. I mean, we talked about a couple of them yesterday. The Josh Naylor look for the Seattle Mariners, and Max Muncy, of course, for the Los Angeles Dodgers. You do wonder if maybe there's a couple of pitchers you could look at if you're talking about some of the dudes that could start for either one of these teams. Obviously, you would need them to start at the beginning of the series, because then you can get the 3 appearances that would potentially help them out. You also need a long series, though, too. So it would be hard to look at a couple of the pitchers and say, like, yeah, I want that guy, because you do want, like, the 3 appearances if you're looking at some of these arms.
Not a pitcher, but I did want to throw a name at you. While I know so much of our discussion yesterday was around how it's not usually the star players and the big names that end up winning these awards.
You gonna go star player?
Should the Blue Jays work their way out of this? Vladdy Guerrero at 25-1 right now?
No, he's not hitting the ball very well. Dude, I mean, you're right. I'm not, I think that's probably worth it. The dude's been absolutely unreal. And, the narrative with this team and everything like that, I mean, if there's going to be a guy who's going to get a lot of the credit, and I would assume if they're winning the series, that it's going to be him being active, because I don't think there's a reality in which it's like a George Springer that carries them through a best of 7 against a team like we were assuming, the Dodgers.
Yeah, I told you,
What's his number?
I like 25-1.
Okay.
I already liked the Seattle to beat the Dodgers in the World Series bet, but if Toronto does work their way through, I mean, he's been playing so well. It's one of those things. A good reminder, though, as the MLB postseason rolls on, we talk about all of the content up at the website right now. In addition to Major League Baseball, we've got the NFL, we've got college football, hockey, NBA, everything. And when you are a VSiN Pro subscriber, you get unlimited access to all of it. Start betting smarter today for just $9.99 or save 50% off with an annual plan we've got going on right now at vsin.com/subscribe. Again, that's vsin.com/subscribe. I'm going to share my login with you, JVT. But the intro offer is pretty good for everyone else.
The second login you've given me today, I appreciate it.
Sometimes.
Do you use just out of curiosity, do you use the same password for everything?
I do not. So keep that in mind. We'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, we're kicking off week 7 of the NFL tonight. College football in full swing. We were just talking in the commercial break. NHL, NBA upon us. And, of course, October baseball as well. And
Did you say college basketball?
College basketball almost here, too?
That's right. Almost here.
Oh, my gosh. What a fun time of year. And fortunately, we have somebody that we can go behind the counter with and break it all down. Nick Bogdanovich joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line, veteran odds maker, head of trading over at Boomer's Sportsbook. And I'm sure it's a very busy time on your side of things too, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, no, October and November are the best time to be a sports bettor. I mean, it's every sport's rolling, nonstop action, 24/7. So yeah, no. October, November is the dead nuts.
All right, Nick, before we get to some of the games, walk us through Boomer Sportsbook and the new endeavor here. What are you up to?
Yeah, it's just a brand new little startup sportsbook, trying to, make our way in the state of Nevada. We're in a couple locations here in southern Nevada, Ellis Island, Casino Valley Verde. and one in Carson City and one in Elko. So we're real small to begin with, but we'll add a property here and a property there, and who knows, in a couple years we'll probably be a decent little factor.
Yeah, we've got a little thing going here right now, too. If you use the code VSIN250 when you go to betwithboomer.com, when you sign up on a mobile account, your first deposit up to $250 gets matched in bonus bets. So check it out if you haven't already. But let's get into what we have on deck that Cam Hayward has dubbed the Icy Hot Bowl coming up tonight on Thursday night. Joe Flacco and Aaron Rodgers going head-to-head. Where do you guys sit right now, and where are you seeing the early money come in for tonight?
Yeah, a little two-way action, really. We opened 6, went down as low as 4.5, and someone just laid 4.5 before I walked out the door, so we're back up to 5. But, yeah, we got these 2 old aging quarterbacks going to duel it out tonight. But you know what? Nowadays, the way people take care of their bodies, the 40 is the new 34. So these guys can still get it done. But anytime there's a division game, it's interesting.
Where do you think this total ends up? Because it was the total in terms of where it opened. Where were you guys? Because some spots have been bet up like about 3 points, 2.5 points.
Yeah, we're up to 45, so there's definitely been money for the over. Pittsburgh strikes me usually as an under team, but their defense is nothing special, and obviously we know Cincinnati's defense is poor. So I can understand the move upwards.
Yeah, we were having a conversation a little bit earlier about how, the Steelers' defense was so bad at the beginning of the season, which surprised a lot of us. They have seemed to maybe turn a corner a little bit the last couple of weeks, and I'm curious your opinion on the Steelers in general right now. Based on some of their metrics early in the season, they looked like they were a little bit of a fugazi 4-1, yet here they sit atop the division and maybe getting a little bit better. How do you view them?
Yeah, I think they're the most overrated team in football. So
okay.
I'm not I like Tomlin, but I don't think as an in-game coach he's very good. Obviously, I think their offense is average and their defense is average. So I do think they're a little bit fugazi.
Told you. See, I've been trying to tell Stormy this the whole time, Nick. Nobody wants to listen to me.
I have the Steelers season win total over 8.5, so I'm trying to wish it into existence, Nick.
That's all right. I mean, you get out game. Go ahead.
2 things can be true. They can be fugazi and you can cash both at the same time.
Yep.
I like your attitude.
And then they get their teeth kicked in the postseason. That's what I'm assuming is going to happen. All right, Nick, I'm curious then to that point because, if you look, I was telling Storm, if you look at the standings, it looks like it's 2008 again when you look at these division leaders, Colts, Patriots, Chargers, Steelers. Who's the best team in the AFC by your book?
Best team in the AFC? If I had to pick one team, I hate to say it, but I'd have to say the Chiefs. I think when push comes to shove at the end, they'll be the best. I liked Buffalo at the beginning, but they just between some injuries and just some poor play lately, I still got them a factor. But when push comes to shove, I'd probably take the Chiefs over anyone.
Do you think what we've seen with Shane Steichen and Daniel Jones is for real, and that the Colts could potentially be a contender in that side of things?
No, I think it's a good story, and I think they got some offensive weapons, but I think the overall whole entity of that team, I don't think they go deep into the playoffs. I think they're win one game or one and done.
Right after he made you happy on the Steelers, he made you sad about the Colts.
That's all right. The non-belief in former UNLV quarterback and head coach in the Indianapolis Colts, Shane Steichen, that will be proven in time. Any notable wagers for you in the NFL week early on before Sunday comes around, Nick?
Me personally?
No, I mean just what you guys have seen over there at Boomer.
Oh yeah, no, you know what? There's been all sorts of movement. But. The Chiefs got bet down. I think we opened as high as 12.5, and there was some Raider money. And Seattle got bet up for whatever reason. We opened at 3 flat. It's on its way to 3.5. So yeah, there's been a little bit of movement, but obviously 90% of it will come in the next few days.
Nick Bogdanovich, head of trading at Boomer Sportsbook, joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. And speaking of Seattle, the Mariners in action coming up today. They had the 2-0 lead on the road, and then Toronto's bats wake up like crazy yesterday. What kind of action are you seeing on this one? And I know you don't love betting regular season baseball because of the chaos, but how has the postseason been going, and are you involved in anything tonight?
I'm not involved. I did have Toronto's game 1 and 2, so I silenced their bats. I skipped game 3, and they got 14 like they did in the Yankee series. But the postseason baseball is the best. I mean, it just is. Right now, we're seeing a little money on Toronto tonight. So the bettors out there think that the Blue Jays are going to tie this thing back up, and in Mad Max, they believe, I guess, but we'll see what he has. He hasn't pitched in a while.
It seems like the market is pretty solidly on Toronto's side, right? I mean, they were priced pretty strongly in the 2 games at home against Seattle, and now here again, we're getting some pretty cheap prices on Castillo, despite the fact that he's pitched well.
Yeah, he's a gamer, but that may not be enough. You still got to have some stuff. I mean, he can go out there with the big cojones, but if he doesn't have control, he doesn't have control. I mean, but I just think, I just love Toronto's makeup the whole year. They a bunch of no names other than Springer and Vladdy, and they just keep getting it done. So. Seattle really misses Wu. They needed him as an arm.
How about the first of the 2 games, the NLCS? Tyler Glasnow going for the Dodgers, who've seen back-to-back games in this series where the starting pitching has been lights out. They're a big favorite tonight against the Brewers again.
Yeah, there's been a ton of money for the Brewers today. I think we opened the Dodgers 90, and we're down close to 65. So there's been plenty of Brewer money this morning. I guess they think the Brewers have been tough and scrappy all year, so you might as well take a big price with a team that has no quit in them. But the Dodgers do look like just so many studs on the team, and they're obviously triple focused now that the postseason is here. So, but there's definitely been Brewer money today.
All right, Nick, I have to ask you, we'll go to college football really quickly because Matt Humans made fun of me the last couple of years when I was on primetime because I would intro almost every game like this, and I think this reigns true again. The biggest game in UNLV football history. Rebels go on the road to take on Boise State. What do you think?
Yeah, wouldn't that be a great story if they could upset them up there in Boise? But I don't know if they can with that defense. Obviously, I'm a huge Rebel fan. I went to every game when I was a kid, and I root hard for them, but I don't want to say they've been doing it with smoke and mirrors. They've been doing it with a lot of guts and some timely clutch plays, but they got to get some stops, and stops may be few and far between up in Boise.
Nick, you're awesome. Thank you so much for the time. We appreciate it, and we'll check in with you again soon.
Great being with you guys. Have a good one.
You too. Nick Bogdanovich, again, doing great stuff over at Boomer Sportsbook. And I do want to remind you again, because they are a newer entity, they got football, hockey, basketball, so much more that's popping up. When you use our code, VSIN250, sign up for the Boomers mobile account. They're going to match your first deposit up to $250 in bonus bets. Plus, they're giving you -105 on all pro football spreads for every regular season game throughout the season. Download the Boomer Sportsbook app. BetWithBoomer.com for more information. Must be 21. Terms and conditions do apply. Bet responsibly. Again, that code for you, VSIN250. Cash in. You got to do it. And speaking of not getting stops, the total in UNLV Boise State, 62.5. Do you think Boise's defense can slow down UNLV's offense too? Because we've talked about how good they've been and efficient. 62.5 is high, but I lean over.
Although I did see, a big picture of Dan Mullen, not the one in which you and him pierced me at my sides and kept my hands down. And with the headline, Dan Mullen, Penn State. So maybe he's a little distracted.
That photo, by the way, how come every time I take a picture with you now, you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
We did.
Whoa, whoa.
We had to take a picture the other day. I was like,
we got to step aside. When we come back, jumping into the contest corner, talking NFL, Survivor, and ATS Million. We'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Did you know that First Bet and VSiN are teaming up with a special offer, and today's the final day to take advantage of it?
No way.
Yes, I'm telling you, open and deposit into a new First Bet account. You'll get up to $250 in a sign-up bonus, but you need to use our promo code VSIN250. That's VSIN 250. Then place $100 in wagers your first 30 days. You'll unlock a full year of VSiN Pro, $240 value there. Plus, if you're already a subscriber, don't worry. We're going to extend your subscription for an entire full year. For more information, go over to first.com/VSiN. That's 1st.com/VSiN. Promo code VSIN250. Check it out today. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan, Von Tobel with you. I'm actually going to get a little racing in my life this weekend as well. Tomorrow. After we're done with all of our coaches' meetings and my SEC Network responsibilities in Lexington, we're going over to Keeneland. Our camera operator said that he wanted to shoot a couple cutaways for us to have for welcome backs during the game for Kentucky and Texas. And apparently we were invited to go as well. So I'm going to maybe place a couple horse racing wagers tomorrow.
That sounds thrilling. I'll be here.
I'll let you know if I've got any good plays for you.
I was going to say, yeah, let me know. You like the 5 horse in the 7th race or something like that?
Yeah, I'll send you all the text messages, try to pull my best Mike Somich if I can tomorrow.
Right.
See what we've got going on, or as Matt Brown always likes to say, we talk to the horses. How are they feeling?
Yeah,
see how
right.
it's going.
You know, this thing wasn't really running well in the Lafayette Derby 6 weeks ago. So
I always love when they say, doesn't really like this style of race. Doesn't really like the course. Oh, really? Did they tell you?
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
Don't get me started. I don't want to denigrate the great jobs that many horse handicappers.
No,
do.
it does make you can't help but laugh a little bit.
A little funny.
It's good to make fun of yourself too. We are going to get into a little contest corner here. However, though, shifting from horse racing back to football. We are both in the Circa Million contest here, where you pick 5 games against the spread every week based on the static lines that come out on Thursdays, and they came out just about an hour ago. So we're going to go through some of those numbers. But I know a lot of you across the country are in your own different against the spread contest, or you're just trying to make picks for this weekend, getting ahead of some of those early thoughts and numbers. Also, Circa Survivor rolls on. There are survivor pools across the country. Our official real entry, dead in the water in the carnage a couple weeks ago. However, in our fictitious entry that we have, had we taken the team that we thought we were going to take 2 weeks ago in the Colts, we're kind of playing it off as if we were still alive, and
just an exercise, folks.
It's just an exercise, but I think it's a good way to keep us engaged and continue to talk through it week to week. And we fake picked the Packers last week, so we're still alive in version 2 here. As far as some of the games go this week, who were some of the early contenders for you from a Survivor standpoint?
All right. So as we look at Survivor, and so there's a couple of different ways to look at it. Obviously, in the prism of, our entry, if you will. But just in general, I would assume that, is New England going to be one of the more popular selections, if not the most popular selection?
Yeah.
Obviously, they're 7-point favorites, so they're a big favorite. They're on the road, one of a couple of 7-point favorites. But I would assume that, for example, a lot of people have probably used Denver already. There was multiple opportunities to use them.
And even if they hadn't, the way that the Giants have been playing lately, do you really want to run that risk?
Correct. I mean, not only that, add to that, the way the Broncos offense has been playing.
Fair.
And, again, you can always play this game of this is why. We also did just watch a team make the trip back home. And again, they were on a second consecutive road game. The Browns did just come back from overseas and then got pasted against the Steelers, so maybe not the best situation to go and try to bank on a team in that situation. So you're probably going to be up there. If you haven't used Green Bay, they're going to be up there. But I'd venture a guess that New England is probably going to be the most popular Survivor selection. And it's probably the best time to use them. Mm-hmm. I don't really think that they should be 7-point favorites. I'm actually kind of tempted to look at Tennessee in this regard as well. Now that you're looking at the full 7, see if it maybe gets to 7.5.
New coach bump type of a thing?
Yeah.
Do you believe in that?
Callahan's not great. And you know me, I've kind of tried to, to use the term one more time today for the last time, catch that falling knife here and there with Tennessee, used them against Arizona, got kind of lucky. Bet on them and use them again against the Raiders. Didn't really get there, although they did have the ball with a chance to get into the back door at the end of that game. So I've kind of toyed with this thought that we had at the beginning of the season that I think this team's kind of better. And what if it's true? It's just that Callahan was a bad coach. So there's still that potential there. But either way, I don't think they're deserving of that. It might be a little sweaty, but this is probably going to be the only time you're going to have a chance to use New England unless you're going to use them against one of those home games against the Jets. But that's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah, they are at Cincinnati in late November, maybe. But again, like regardless, it's still going to be your easiest games are on the road. So it's going to be a little bit of a tougher situation regardless. But I think the way New England's been playing lately, I think even if it's unsaid from Vrabel himself that there is a locker room that's going to want to fight for their head coach, who obviously has helped put them in this position, knowing the background there with Tennessee, which, by the way, the Patriots have four wins this year. How many did the Titans have in the entirety of Brian Callahan?
How many?
Also 4.
Oh, 4? Okay. All right. There you go. And I'll say this, too. I mean, I don't think, because Kansas City plays what? They play on one of the holidays, right?
They play on multiple holidays.
So you're not going to use them. But Pittsburgh? I mean, Pittsburgh's probably going to be relatively popular. Some of the projections, like Survivor Atlas, has Green Bay as the most popular selection this week, 54%. I guess that makes some sense potentially. So we'll see. Because we're in week 7, right? That was last week, that they have Green Bay. So I'm going to be curious to see where exactly this breaks down. But New England is probably going to be your top pick.
So the Chiefs on Thanksgiving week are at Dallas, and then on Christmas Day against Denver. So that at Dallas game, even though it's on the road, probably one that people are probably trying to save them for, I would imagine. If you didn't, and you're just like, let me survive in advance, that's obviously the biggest spread on the board this week.
Yeah. You're going to have to get a little frisky, though, this week. That would seemingly be the case. Here's one for you. We get reports today, and this can tie into the contest lines as well. Let me pull up the exact numbers here for you in a second. Dolphins, Browns, 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts.
I saw this, and Hockley on the field, which apparently is like another thing toward the under.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you dare, if you're somebody like me, do you use Cleveland?
Ooh.
Yeah, you didn't think you didn't think about that for a second, huh?
Well, you are our
home.
resident Dolphins hater.
That's right. Cleveland at home might go off as like a 3-point favorite. This weather, doesn't really bode well for Miami at all. Tua does not have the arm to handle the elements in any way, shape, or form. And while Gabriel might not, I think you trust of the two who's going to be able to scheme up a running game in an environment like this. It might be Cleveland. They're very much the better defensive team too. So with the elements at their back, if you will, it seems like a scenario where they might be, like, again, as Adam Burke always says, right? If you're going to win and survive, you got to use 20 of these teams. So maybe if you have multiple injuries, do you try to sneak a couple through with the Cleveland Browns against the Miami Dolphins?
What do you think of Tua's apology?
I think that if you're apologizing, you're already in a bad spot.
Yeah. I mean, it was all a bad situation, but I think he at least said the right thing and taken ownership and, hey, probably we should keep things in-house. For us, from a media standpoint, it provides content for us. It's interesting, and you get a peek behind the curtain of some of the discourse that's going on back there. But from his standpoint,
and my apologies to our production crew. I didn't realize, yes, we have the actual projections for week 7. I probably should have just noted those that are up there. I apologize.
For millions, anything that stood out to you here spread-wise, games that you already like or lean? Are we done taking the plus points on bad teams? Or are we going back to the well?
Can't ask us to do that again. See, look, you're just trying to throw me under the bus. Like, it's not just me. You have say in all of these things.
I know.
You might. Don't tempt me with a good time when you look at some of these, though. Again, Titans catching a full 7.
Yeah.
No, can't tempt you. Can't look in that direction at all.
So it's one of those things where, like, I have an actual bet that has the Patriots teased. So I would like to not have to root for a close game.
Yeah, root for the middle, if you will.
Yes.
How about this? We got to go down this well. We've talked about this. I think we've had a pretty good finger on the pulse with this group.
Colts, Chargers?
No, we'll talk about that. Yes. Do the Panthers deserve to be 1.5-point favorites? Do you trust the Panthers as 1.5-point road favorites?
Can't do it. We have a trend, by the way, that we're going to tell you about the Panthers coming up next hour.
So would that lean you toward then maybe going the other direction? And playing against our beloved Carolina Panthers. Yeah.
It is very hard to picture the Panthers not only as a favorite, but a road favorite.
Sure.
It is a tough spot to be in.
The other that I think is somewhat tempting as well is Jacksonville at home catch a 3 with the Rams. Like, the full 3 is the contest line.
What do you think about the Commanders only 1.5 at the Cowboys?
Got burned with the Commanders last week. Didn't really come close to covering that number. The Cowboys are a very bad defensive team.
Correct.
I think I'd rather go with like some team total stuff there. But it is tempting to lay just 1.5 with Washington in that spot.
Eagles only laying 1.5 at Vikings?
That's one, but I'm telling you right now, You're going to have a tough time.
And I've been the queen of the anti-Eagles metrics, but 1.5.
That one, it sounds like maybe J.J. McCarthy's trending toward playing, although he was limited the other day, and Carson Wentz.
The Vikings that much more?
I don't know. I mean, everybody tells me he's the next Tom Brady. But I will say the one thing that I'm going to be I feel like I have to restrain myself. Again, I just don't see the Chargers being 1.5-point favorites here against the Colts.
Yeah, that was the second half of my teaser. Is bringing the Colts up and then the Patriots down.
I mean, again, a lot of people would say, because I'm 1.5 home field, a lot of people would say that you don't give any for what the Chargers are playing at. This would tell you they're better than Indy. I'm just not buying it, man.
They just have so many issues. And to play such a close game down to the wire with Miami this past week and our view of that team.
What happened when the Colts played the Dolphins?
It was a very different result, let's put it that way.
That's the sound of the spanking they got.